Welcome in, Bleav in Commanders podcast, part of the Bleav Network, and we are brought to you by FanDuel. We are very excited this week, Anthony Armstrong, to talk quarterback season 3 on Netflix right now, streaming now. Go ahead and download it. We have the senior producer, Tim Rumpff, with us, and Tim had a great experience hanging out with Jayden Daniels. So, Tim, who is in the center square, appreciate you coming on, and we should say Tim is a Terp, and yes, that is, in fact, a Dexter Manley Redskins jersey behind him, which is so great. Tim, thanks for coming on with us today. How you doing?
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk quarterback.
Man, look, everybody would be so jealous to be sitting there talking to you. One, and Scott, if nobody saw it beforehand, Scott was just fanboying out over that jersey. So that's pretty cool. We'll start out hometown. Since you are from the area and you mentioned that you covered Dexter Manley and you've done a lot just covering the Washington franchise, just how does it feel to be able to pour back and tell the story and the strong history of this organization?
Yeah, I mean, I was born and raised in the Maryland and D.C. area in Gaithersburg, Maryland. So when, I was told that Jayden Daniels was going to participate in quarterback this year, I mean, I was over the moon. Coming off of last season, going to the NFC Championship, right away, my instant thought was, I'm going to be in the locker room after we win the Super Bowl. This is going to be incredible. I mean, obviously, unfortunately, the season didn't exactly unfold how we would have hoped. But it was a different story I'm sure he wanted to tell, but it was still an interesting one regardless. So, but it was really special to be part of that organization for that last year and really get to kind of peek behind the curtain.
So, Tim, you mentioned, look, the year didn't go the way anybody hoped it would. Literally by the second game of the season, he's dealing with an injury, and then he's on the sidelines for a couple more weeks, comes back, looks great, against the Chargers. Everybody's like, yes, we got this thing back, and obviously that did not last long. As you're going through that with him, it's got to be hard. And I know you've done this before, right, with other quarterbacks. You've been with Kirk Cousins when he got benched and the things that happened there and in his career. So how does that kind of change dynamic of maybe the stories you guys want to tell? And is there any challenges with the player themselves to say, hey, this might be painful, but we got to keep it rolling? How do you guys kind of find that balance?
Yeah, I think that's what's really interesting about this show is that going into the year, you can't really script anything. You can't say, hey, here's the storylines we want to tell. Of course, you kind of know where they're at going into the year. Like I remember early in the season having a ride along into a game with Jayden where he's talking about, hey, it was an awesome rookie year, but I'm putting that behind me. Of course, I want to be in the MVP discussions this year and we want to compete for a Super Bowl and all that. But like you said, as soon as he injures his knee week 2, and then of course has more significant injuries later on in the season, kind of things change and you have to shift. And unfortunately, you mentioned Kirk previously. He was a guy that understood part of signing up for the show is you've got to be an open book. And Jayden was, along those same lines where he understood being part of this show, you kind of have to show all aspects of being an NFL quarterback and, the good and the bad. And unfortunately, rehabbing from injuries is part of that and dealing with not only the physical, but also the mental aspect of that and wanting to be on the field, not being able to be there with your teammates.
Speaking of the injuries and kind of staying there, what is it like having to I would say be a therapist, but like sit there and have, be the one that he's venting to or talking to, while he's going through these injuries?
Yeah, it's really interesting because I'm kind of wearing 2 hats at the same time. I mean, I'm curious what he's going to say just as a fan as well, because a lot of times you get more of a personal inside look when you're with this guy every single week than maybe what they're willing to say to a member of the media in a press conference right after the game. So it really is interesting. I think you have to know not only how to ask the right questions, but also how to listen and just be quiet when you need to be quiet, because that's kind of when you get your probably most personal answers, when he might say something and then I don't follow up with a question and there's just an awkward silence. And then all of a sudden you get that second answer, which that's probably most of the stuff that ends up on the screen.
We're here with Tim Rumpff. He is from quarterback season 3. He spent his time with Jayden Daniels getting ready for the season. Of course, if you have not seen quarterback 3, you need to download it. It's streaming right now on Netflix. Baker Mayfield, Joe Flacco, the rookie Cam Ward, and of course the former Rookie of the Year, Jayden Daniels. So it's a great thing. Please give us a follow here on Bleav in Commanders, Bleav Network, brought to you by FanDuel. Comment, like, and follow, please. And I can ask you this, Tim, because I've always wondered, this is very inside baseball nerdy media question here from me, but are you camped out of this man's house the entire season? Are there certain hours that are like, hey, it's off limits, man, this is my time, we're filming? Do you have a filming schedule? How does that part of it work? like, or are you like part of the furniture and are like, they're just cameras like the Kardashians all over this house? I mean, what's happening?
Yeah, certainly think there's some give and take. I mean, we're definitely not with them 24/7.
Okay.
They're mic'd up every single game. I mean, that's a given. For practices, it's usually once or twice a week that they're mic'd up. I mean, just because the current practice schedule, they probably only have 2 practices that really they're doing anything. A fast Friday, we're not getting much out of, but we still capture some of those just because you can kind of get different approaches and different preparation. But as far as shooting with them off the field, it's more of just, hey, before the year, we'll sit down with them, lay out your schedule. What do you typically do on certain days? When do you get your body work? When do you study film? When do you have stuff that you're giving back to the community? And we kind of try to target stuff, but it really changes, like we were talking about earlier, any given week, depending on what happened previously. If he suffers an injury, hey, I'm going to drive down on Tuesday and we're going to be with you, from whatever time you're doing your rehab. And the great thing actually this year for us, NFL Films is based in Mount Laurel, New Jersey. So I'm only a 3-hour drive away from Ashburn. So it's easy for me to head down whenever. But all that said, no, I'm definitely not at his house as he gets home from practice every single day. They definitely have their space, but we try to make sure we capture any significant developments that we can to make sure we can tell that story throughout the year.
And it would be a little odd if you're just waiting there with a
Right.
plate of chocolate chip cookies. Hello, welcome home. Got your house shoes for you. Let's do this interview. I know I grew up and played in a time where it was like, you don't talk to the media. There's no way there's going to have, filming going on in the building. Like, when did y'all start? Did it start at the beginning of the season, or was this like a in training camp thing? And how long did he know before he was actually going to participate?
Yeah, so every year it's been different. With Jayden, he agreed and signed up. The first shoot we did with him was at the Fanatics Fest last year. So I want to say that was in the summer, maybe June or July, something like that. And then we shot an event over at his charity, in early August out in LA. So definitely he knew probably on the earlier side. I know some previous years with one of the years with Kirk or Justin Jefferson, I think we might have known like a week before the season. So literally, I think any player, it could be different.
Again, Tim Rumpff, senior producer with NFL Films, part of Quarterback Season 3. Again, Jayden Daniels, a big part of this. Baker Mayfield, quite funny. Joe Flacco's story is actually really great, too,
Awesome.
and Cam Ward. Actually, all of it's really good. If you haven't seen it yet, I don't want to give any spoilers here, but I thought, and I knew, obviously, you did a lot of offseason with Jayden because I did see the part where you're at his home early in one of the early episodes in the offseason and the charity event, but that part of it, you start there and there's just so much hope, right? And like, I know we obviously know what's going to happen, right? And I remember watching this last year with Zach Ertz during the NFC East thing, and you're like drawn in, like this great feature on Ertz. And then, like literally a week later, he has that horrible, season ending, maybe career ending injury. So you're kind of being drawn in here, and, he's just kind of like at the point where early in this, he's come over that hump of the injury. So for you being around him so much, I mean, obviously his demeanor, I'm sure, changes, but as a person, do you find him to be pretty even still, despite all these ups and downs that he had last year and disappointments? Because he's very frank with you. He didn't want to be shut out of the early part of the season with the injuries. He wanted to keep playing.
Yeah. That's one thing that definitely came across in my conversation with him. When he got hurt against the Packers week 3 and week 4, he was super frustrated. He wanted to be out there. But I think he understands, the team understood, they kind of needed to protect him from himself at certain times. And I think that frustration only grew. And I don't say that in a bad way. I think it's more of just that he's a competitor and wants to be out there. And that really came across. And I think what's interesting, you mentioned those guys that are on the other ones that are on the show, like a Joe Flacco or Baker Mayfield. Those guys, have families that they go home to. They've got kids that they're going to their sporting events. Jayden goes home and it seems to me watches more football. Like he lives and breathes football. And as a Commanders fan, like that's what I want to hear. That's what I want to see my quarterback doing. So I think that kind of bled into that frustration as well. Like, this is what he's passionate about. This is what he really wants to do. And for that to be taken away from him, it was a really tough thing for him to go through this year.
I'm going to kind of branch out different positions. You've done receiver, you've done quarterback. What other position group would y'all, go into? I know the specialists,
Center.
You're going to get some weird characters. Scott loves the centers because they're some heady guys, very cerebral. But what other positions would y'all consider?
I mean, I would say, because, I was fortunate enough to direct Hard Knocks for 3 years and been in various locker rooms. And it does seem like the O-line always has some of the best personalities.
Yes.
So, I mean, that would be great. And obviously the history of the Hogs and everything in DC. But, personally, I think edge rushers would be fantastic. I think running backs would be awesome just because their footage would be incredible. So But I think quarterback specifically is so different, even if you compare it to the year we did receivers, just because they do have the ball in their hands every single game. Like, you'll still have a story. There might be a game for a receiver where, he might not touch the ball, unfortunately. Sure, that's still a story because how are they recovering him and stuff. But that's kind of hard to tell. But a quarterback, he's going to impact the game no matter what.
Yeah, and that's great you bring that up, because I think it was maybe the first or second episode when Cleveland won some game, and Flacco really didn't do much of anything, and he's like kind of like walking off the field talking with the OC Musgrave. He's like, we were like basically saying we were terrible, but I feel terrible about us, but I'm glad we won. Like, it was just a weird thing. It was funny watching that, but and then of course 2 weeks later the guys traded, or whatever it was, 3 weeks later after being benched. It was kind of nutty to watch all those emotions there. But yeah, I mean, I also wonder, and this is kind of nerdy too, because I've been a huge NFL Films fan since I was a kid. Just the technology standpoint, from since you've been doing it, like you said, you got out of Maryland in 06, like how that has maybe made your life easier and just kind of sped up the ability to think about like how quickly you guys turn these shows around. These used to be season ending type of videos, right? That you get on VHS back in the day, from each team. But now you guys turn it back so quickly. How much has that helped your life?
Yeah, so it's crazy. I mean, I'm almost making myself seem older than what I am, but I remember when I first started at Films. I mean, I've been there for 20 years now. We were still shooting everything on film, like actual film, and we were driving it back from stadiums afterwards. And, we were doing those shows like Hard Knocks, we'd have somebody driving it back or shipping it. Like, now that everything is digital, I mean, it's so easy to do these, and it almost creates more of a problem for us, that a good problem, I will say, that we can just shoot so much footage, and then, we've got to obviously resource it on the back end to be able to lock everything. But like for a show like this, it's no problem at all for us to shoot hundreds and hundreds of hours, and we can go through it at the same time here on a weekly basis. It really is completely different. It's a game changer over the last 2 decades.
Did y'all overlap with the Hard Knocks NFC East last year too?
Yeah, so I was one of the 2 directors that was out there for that as well. So that kind of gave us a good opportunity for this show to give us kind of additional access that we had, because we obviously had robotic cameras in every single position room in the building. So we were able to get some more footage from Jayden through that as well.
Oh, I hope DQ didn't have to go use y'all's tape to say that a player fell asleep in a meeting to then say, hey, this is why we cut you, because we caught you sleeping in the background of the film.
He sounds paranoid from his Shanahan days.
Hey, man, I knew where Mike was coming in at. I knew Mike was watching the meeting rooms. I stayed awake. I didn't fall asleep often.
Throughout the years, I've seen plenty of guys maybe doze off here and there.
Bleav in Commanders podcast brought to you by FanDuel, part of the Bleav Network. And again, please comment, like, and follow us. Our pleasure to have Tim Rumpff in here, senior producer for NFL Films. And again, Quarterback season 3 is out right now on Netflix. Check it out. It is excellent stuff. I mean, Baker Mayfield, such a great personality. And Flacco, you get more personality, I think, than you ever knew about Joe Flacco, which is really fun. And Cam Ward has always kind of been, understated funny, too, from back when he was at Miami. And then obviously Jayden, we get to see a little bit more of him, which is exciting for Commanders fans. And let me ask you this big picture, because you said you're all in the building. Here was one of the things I talked a lot about last year, and fans, by like week 15 wanted me to shut up about it. But as terrible as last year was, and it was tough. I mean, I do post-game shows. I did a 3-hour post-game after all these terrible losses and these injuries are piling up. The team, they didn't fracture, because we've had some bad seasons over the decades in Washington, where not only does the team lose, but then it's like, the TMZ sports, right? Like, there's all this craziness going on in the organization, but since the Harris group took over, as we like to say, the adults are in charge, you don't have this stuff. Quinn's a big culture guy, Adam Peters as well. But, and it doesn't make you feel better when you win 5 games. But it seemed like, despite all the mess, it wasn't a group that fractured, as you can see a lot of times in the team dynamic.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, obviously I'm an outsider, but I did get to spend a lot of time in there. And that's the sentiment that I got. Like, everybody in that building loves Dan Quinn, like absolutely loves him, all the players. And I think you do have the right leadership in there. I know obviously Bobby Wagner is gone, but he had a really good relationship with Jayden. And I think he probably rubbed off of Jayden a lot, his leadership style, I hope, and he has, in upcoming years. Obviously Terry as well there. And you mentioned Zach Ertz, like those guys kind of feed off of DQ and kind of set the stage for everybody else. So yeah, there was no perception on my end, at least, that they weren't sticking together.
Man, I had one on the tip of my tongue. I was going to ask, like, how did you see Jayden's leadership grow over the season? He obviously being away from the team, like how did he lead from the sideline and things like that?
Yeah, I thought that was definitely interesting. I mean, you could see that his relationships, like I mentioned, obviously with the Bobby Wagner, but I think definitely with the receivers between Terry and Debo, like he was in the mix every single day, even towards the end of the year where he wasn't playing, but he was still practicing, which I thought that was awesome to see. I think he's more of a guy that kind of leads by example. He's going to go out there and kind of put in the work. Even when he wasn't just he was still in the bubble doing work early mornings. When he's again, like when he was not playing, he was still waking up at 5 a.m. and meeting with Cliff and Coach Blau and doing all his works in the morning when he didn't need to because he wasn't going to be playing on Sunday. So I think guys around the building saw that, and that's all they kind of need to see to know the type of leader that he is.
Tim Rumpff, senior producer for NFL Films this year, Scott Jackson and Anthony Armstrong, Bleav and Commanders podcast, part of the Bleav Network, and again, brought to you by FanDuel. Please like, comment, and follow the podcast. We appreciate it. So, Tim, with all these years you've been doing this stuff with teams, you know, there's certain teams that are a little bit more of an open book. Others, you know, are very, you know, edgy and a little paranoid. I mean, even as a media, like covering training camp now, there's a lot less access for fans and fan bases and media, the videotaping and these type of things. You know, how does like NFL Films kind of balance that, you know, with the franchises? Do you have some franchises that are maybe, you know, trying to insert themselves as executive producers of this program or these programs that you guys do? Or is everybody kind of aware that, look, NFL Films here to promote this product, they've got the shield, you know, taken care of here, and you guys don't have to worry about that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think it's certainly different team by team. I mean, fortunately, like you mentioned, I mean, NFL Films has that 60-plus year relationship that they have built in of trust that the Sables kind of established from day one with the league and the clubs. But I mean, I think I'd be lying if I didn't say that it's a noticeably different relationship, or at least access-wise, over the last couple of years as the Harris Group has taken over. This year is a perfect example, having a guy like Jayden do quarterback and then the team be involved in NFC in season as well. And they've been fantastic to work with. I mean, we didn't have any issues, you know, any access we needed to in the building. The team does see the show at the end for competitive balance reasons to make sure, you know, we're not showing something in the quarterback room and there's some kind of verbiage on the board that we have no idea it means something, but it's going to tip off the Cowboys on something next week. But no, they were fantastic to work with. I mean, even coming to me with some ideas of stuff like, hey, you know, this is when Jayden does his VR stuff, if you want to catch that. So cool. It was great to work with them this year.
Nice. That's interesting. That's coming up too, if you haven't seen it yet.
Yeah,
again, I don't want to give any spoilers out there to anybody.
we were watching it. Me and the wife were watching it, and then only one of us was watching it. So she caught back up, but now we have to keep going together.
Oh,
yeah, I don't want to skip ahead because
don't cheat on her.
Why did you do that? We were at 32 minutes.
No stream cheating, Anthony. You know how that goes. That's a whole other argument.
Don't want to have no beef, no drama over here. My question has to do with how was the relationship with David Blau? I know David was a lower, you know, more of an assistant for a while, and then he's been with Jayden the whole time. So how was that relationship? You seen it in the building?
I mean, that was honestly something interesting to watch because as the season started, he was in a completely different position than what he ended in, and especially where he is now. I mean, he was the assistant quarterback coach to start the year, but you could still see that they had a lot of one-on-one time just on the side on the field or in the meeting room. And certainly they had a really good relationship. And then obviously once he takes over as the quarterback coach, it kind of just goes to another level. So I think that they are going to be a really good pair. They seem to really show me flashes last year when they did get to work together, just in like, you know, little moments in practice and stuff. So I'm excited to see where they go together next year.
Nice. Yeah, no question. I think a lot of us are anxious to see how that goes. And of course, on the other side of the ball too, with Durante Jones, is it hard in the end? I mean, you get, like you said, you guys get so much footage, especially now with the technology, to really pare these things down to, you know, 50, 60-minute episodes every week, and how many episodes, right? And you're filling up a full season of, you know, in what, 7 episodes, right? Or 8 episodes.
Yeah. So every year it's been a little bit different depending on how far, you know, the players go in the playoffs and stuff. Obviously no spoilers, but I think we all know that none of the quarterbacks, unfortunately, in the playoffs this year, which, you know, sometimes is going to happen, but I think they all still have very interesting ends to their season individually. But yes, I mean, that is, I think one of the hardest tasks that we have, because if you think about it, if you have 17 weeks for all these guys of 3 hours of game footage and then all the practice stuff and everything we're doing off the field, I mean, you probably have enough footage to have 15 episodes, but you've got to kind of lock into the best 50 minutes per episode. And that's a challenge when you got 4 completely different personalities that are all doing completely different things.
I could see somebody being real boring. Like, this guy only gave me 20 minutes, man. Like, this is the best.
You didn't have boring this year, though. You guys had no boring on this show.
And they're all different. That's the main thing. I think, I've seen sometimes like, hey, why would you not just do, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Patrick Mahomes or something?
Right.
I think it's nice when you have the different levels of guys that are different stages of their careers, and you kind of see a different perspective from everybody.
Yeah, I agree with that. Joe Flacco wasn't the guy that I would ever sit here and say I want to go and tune in for, but then you see him and you're like, this guy's not too bad, man. Like, he's a pretty good dude, So shout out Joe Flacco. My question on this one is, how do you tell a story that, we already know what the ending was, but how do you make that such an exciting thing to watch and so dramatic, even though we know what the ending is?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think that's part of the magic of NFL films, what we've done for so many years. That, you have the right music, you have the right storytellers, in this case, as far as the quarterbacks, in their own words. And I think anytime you have the fantastic cinematographers that NFL films does have, you can make maybe a 7-3 game seem like it's the greatest game in NFL history. So, we have a lot of talented editors, a lot of talented storytellers, and when you have 4 quarterbacks that are just really open and willing to tell their story and tell their truth of the season, I think that goes a long way.
That's great. It's again, NFL Films fan forever, and in football life, I know you've been part of that because you did the Dexter Manley one, and that's that great jersey behind you. So I mean, that must have been really difficult to cut down into an hour? How long was that episode?
So that was an hour on NFL Network. I did Dexter's and I did Joe Gibbs as well. But Dexter specifically, I remember we had booked a 3-hour interview for him to tell his story, and it went 6 hours just based on how many stories he was, he'd go off on tangents nonstop. But I mean, he's such an interesting guy, and I think an underappreciated guy in NFL history that was a real pleasure personally, just to be able to tell his story.
All right. So if you had a chance, if you could make a 30-second pitch to any Redskin great that's watching this show, who would it be, and why would they choose you to do their football life?
I mean, I'd have to say 2. Honestly, I think it'd be too hard to pick between 2 of them. The first one is I was a huge Art Monk fan growing up. Yes. Obviously, I was obsessed with Art Monk, so I'd love to tell his story. And I feel like people still don't know a lot about Art Monk because he's a pretty quiet guy. He hasn't done much. So I'd just like to hear more and learn more personally. I'm more interested in that. And then obviously Darrell Green, just being Darrell Green. He's amazing on camera. A guy that was a lifer in DC, won so many Super Bowls, part of so many great teams. I think that would be something any Commanders fan would want to watch.
I would put that in my TiVo, man. I would record those. 2
Hall of Famers. That's great. Again, Tim Rumpff, great having you on. Again, hopefully the good year for the Commanders and your Terps as well. Hoping for that. And great stuff, great work. And what is next for you this season? Do you already have an assignment, or are we allowed to tease that or no?
We'll see. We're working on what'll be next for this show.
He said training camp starts August 1st. He may not find out until like tomorrow, or
that's right.
I guess rookies
Commanders are
tomorrow, so you better find out.
Commanders are 30th. Very soon. Awesome. Well, hey, thanks so much, Tim Rumpff. Again, quarterback season 3 right now, Netflix streaming. Check it out. It is excellent with Jayden Daniels, Joe Flacco, Baker Mayfield, and Cam Ward. And again, Tim Rumpff, a Terp Gaithersburg product. We appreciate your time here on Bleav in Commanders. Thanks for your time today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, that's Tim Rumpff. For Anthony Armstrong, Scott Jackson saying so long. Until next time here, Bleav in Commanders, brought to you by FanDuel. Please like, comment, and follow the podcast. Until next time. See you.